Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. Cheryl has done something that she has not done since she was a child, and that is let it all out. She's crying. Terrence is holding her. She doesn't even realize her mother's in the hallway. She heard it all, and when she started down the hallway, she heard the conversation, and the door was wide open. She didn't want to interrupt them because she thought that this might be the opportunity for her and Terrence to bond and all of these different types of things, right? And Terrence wanted to respect her space. You know, she's a child. You feel me? And he didn't want that door to be shut because, he understood what she's a young woman, but she's a child. So he left the door open to make her feel safe. And when her mother overheard the conversation, she sat in the hallway, like I said, and she cried, but she made her way into the room. And she stood there and she stared at Terrence hugging her. And Terrence, he heard her, so he turned and he looked behind him, and she was standing in the doorway. And he told her, he motioned for her to come over, and he said, "We need to talk." And Cheryl, out of embarrassment, she said, No, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And Terrence looked at her and he told her, he said, "Look, me and her, your mother, we're here to protect you." He said, "I'm not trying to replace your father, but it's our job to protect you. And we haven't done a good job of that. Not based on what you just told me." And she stared at him. She didn't feel 18. She felt like she was 9 or 10 years old. She felt like she was 9 or 10 years old looking into the face of somebody that cared about her and loved her. And she knew it in that moment. But this wasn't her biological. You understand? But she had never heard anybody talk to her like this. She had never heard anything like this. And it made her feel safe and secure. It resonated with something inside of her. You know what I mean when I say resonate? It touched something in her. And it felt right. It felt right. And she just collapsed in his arms again, and she cried, and her mother started crying, and they all three sat there on the side of the bed, and they were holding each other. And her mother said, "I heard everything that she said. You don't have to repeat it. I know, and I'm sorry." And Cheryl looked up at her and she told her, she said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've embarrassed you. I embarrassed you. I'm sorry." She just kept repeating it over and over and over. And her mother, she grabbed her and she told her, no, it's okay. We're going to get through this together. She's doing everything she can to reassure her baby that this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this together as a family. And they sat there for what seemed like an hour. And Cheryl, eventually, she fell asleep in her mother's arms. And her mother laid her head back on the pillow. And her and Terrence, they got up and they tucked her in. And then they walked out of the room. And when they got outside of the room and got back to their bedroom, Terrence was angry. He was angry. He was angry like a father would be. How dare this man take advantage of her like that? Even though she was 18. She's a child. She's a child. And immediately, he wanted to call the police. But see, Teresa said, "Hold up. Wait a minute. If we call the police and we tell them everything that she said, she's going to get in trouble." So he said, "We have to do something. We got to do something." And she said, "But we're not doing that. We got to figure out a way to help her. Forget about them." So that night they continued to talk, and then they laid down and they went to sleep. And they got up the next morning and Terrence went to work. And Teresa and Cheryl, they were able to sit at the kitchen table over breakfast and talk for the first time in a long time. A long time. And Teresa told us, said, "Look, we're going to put off trying to have a baby. I understand where you're coming from now. And I wish you would have told me. That's what she told her. And Cheryl didn't say anything. She wanted to tell her that it was okay, but she felt embarrassed for even feeling and thinking like that now, especially after last night, knowing that her mom had a good guy and that maybe they could be a family. Maybe she wouldn't have to leave and try to start over somewhere all by herself. Maybe this could work. Maybe things could work out. And she started to talk to her mother about her boyfriend. And she told her mother that she did care about her boyfriend. And she didn't know what it was going to be, but she wanted to be loyal to him and she wanted to hold true to him. But people had started to have these expectations of her. So when somebody calls her, she doesn't know how to tell them no. Because she started something that she feels like she don't know how to stop. You see, a lot of young people, male and female, get caught up like that. They start some things, some negative activity, and then they want to stop, but they don't know how to say no. And she's asking her mother, help me say no. And her mother told her, the next time somebody calls you and tells you to come over and you know what they want, just say no. But this time I'm going to be there with you. When they call you, let me know. Let me know. And I'll coach you through it. See, something as small as saying no. Think about it, y'all. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to say no and you just couldn't? You felt obligated to say yes, or you felt embarrassed to say no? And you went on and said yes, knowing that you didn't want to say it? What is that? What's going on down deep inside of us? I've been there. And I've identified what the problem was for me. It was me not wanting to disappoint people. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I tell them no, they're not going to like me anymore. Right? And that went from a child to an adult. And over the years, as time went by, it became a pattern for me. Until one day, I was like, I keep doing things that are not healthy for me. They're not beneficial for me and my life and my well-being. And they don't live and they don't stand by the moral code that I want to live my life by. So why do I keep doing these things? I felt helpless. Until one day I found the courage to say no. And that may be different for you, but for me, I had to go to the Most High and I said, pray for that courage. Give me that courage to say no. And at the same time, I didn't want to feel embarrassed. I didn't want to feel ashamed. And I didn't want to feel rejected. And over time, the Most High gave me that. And see, Cheryl was dealing with that. And her mother was going to be her rock. And over time, she learned to say no. And she was able to distance herself from all of those individuals. She talked to her boyfriend at the juvenile facility, and she told him, I'm not doing that anymore. And even though he pushed and he pushed and he pushed, he told her, okay, I understand. And she didn't want to go visit him anymore until he got out. He didn't understand that. He didn't like that, but he agreed to it. But see, he started feeling some type of way about that. He didn't understand her plight. He didn't hear in his heart what she was saying. Yes, she didn't explain all the details to him. It's not something that she wanted to do over the phone. She wanted to do it in person, but he couldn't hear that hurt in her voice. Keep in mind, he's her age too. So to put that burden on him, that's unfair. But he started to feel some type of way about her not coming to see him. And if you want to know how that manifested and played out, tune into the next episode, right? Because this story still has some layers to it, and I want you to get it all. Okay? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.
I'm getting so tired.